Welcome to another episode of Acts of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Eric Van Aken.
Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode. Y'all didn't see me just pop up my Sure Plus Motive mic thing in front of the windows. Ignore that.
Nadia is out this week at Long Island Retro Expo, so instead we're joined by Alex Van Aken, formerly of Game Informer. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kat. Thanks for having me on, you two. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about today's topic.
Alex, tell us a little bit about Viewport.
Yeah, Viewport is the new crowdfunded game documentary YouTube channel I announced it yesterday. It's kind of secretly been in the works for months. I wasn't planning to leave my job to do it by any means, but I had approval to do it on the side. And so I've already filmed a couple documentaries, have a couple lined up. But if you're a fan of places like NoClip or Archipel or People Make Games, kind of going for that style. But yeah, it's called Viewport, Inside Looks at Game Development. You can follow it at Viewport Video on social. That's also like the little username for YouTube. And yeah, it's all crowdfunded via Patreon. So I'm excited.
That's really exciting. Go check it out. Go
Thank you.
And support Alex and everybody else at Game Informer. Eric, you and I, we talked a little bit about everything that went down last week, and certainly we're no stranger to having to kind of spin up our own projects in the wake of publication closing. So sort of the circle of life at this point.
It's awesome. Right? I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's great. I feel so supported by the media landscape at all times.
Yeah. It's all depressing, but it's the response to Viewport and spinning up my own thing. And I've seen support for other editors who are kind of trying to do the same thing. It is heartening to see the support from people who care about the work. So
yeah, for sure. And I think that as someone, we've been doing Acts of the Blood God as a Patreon for 4 years now, and it's really special to be able to have this thing that you are creating that is not part of any larger for-profit organization. So genuinely wishing you the best of luck, and I can't wait to watch your Another Crab's Treasure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to get that doc out. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And it's also very on topic because this week we are going to be talking about the Souls genre, the state of the Souls genre, as it continues to take over RPGs slowly but surely, like a virus or perhaps like a swamp. We'll be getting into that in just a moment, but first, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on the podcatcher of your choice. You can support us on Patreon, where for just $1 a month, you can get access to the show ad-free, and you can get on our Discord and hang out with our amazing community, vote in our Pantheon of the Blood God poll, and we have lots of bonus content at the higher levels, including being able to hang out with us while we're recording, getting access to our post show, getting access to the Pantheon of the Blood God. We just did a Pokemon Red and Blue Pantheon of the Blood God that went like 2.5 hours with Callie Plaguey. That was so much fun. Oh my gosh, what a great episode. And now we are in the midst of our next Pantheon of the Blood God, Shining Force 2. So come on and sign up. We would love to have you. And then the big one, next week, August 17th and August 18th, we will be doing the Acts of the Blood God charity stream for the 3rd year in a row. A 2-day extravaganza with tons of amazing special guests, including Matt McMuscles, Brianna White, and many, many more. We're going to be sitting on a couch in Final Fantasy XIV. We're going to be doing more Blood God Olympics. We're going to be doing video game Tinder online and many more amazing events. Aren't we, Eric?
Yeah, like we We're literally locking everything down right now. As Kat said, we've got some incredible guests. Brianna White, who you might know from the video game Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is going to be there for our video game Tinder. If you like Final Fantasy voice
ever
actors,
so good.
Yeah. No, if you like Final Fantasy voice actors, we've also got Javier Prusky, who is the voice of Bakul Jaja in Dawn Trail.
Whoa.
That's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of awesome people you know and love throughout the industry, just appearing on all kinds of different stuff. We're doing the Baldur's Gate 3 run. We actually need to set a time for us to do our character creation sometime this week.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that's like high prio right there.
Pretty critical.
Because we can't spend like the first hour of the stream just staring at a character creation screen.
Should I be a girl or a boy? I don't know.
You know, Nadia's just gonna get in, lock like Dragonborn Ranger, like same character from the D&D campaign, and then just hit go. Like it's gonna be us, and frankly, me probably fretting over what we're gonna.
I haven't decided my class yet. I still need to decide my class. Are we literally going to just do? So I've already done Paladin, and part of me kind of wants to do a different class at this point.
Yeah, I want to do a different class too. I'm leaning Bard because I haven't played a Bard yet in BG3.
I was a Warlock Paladin in my original playthrough, which was such an OP power class that I'm just like
power gaming over here.
Big power gaming. I want to actually roleplay this time around.
Okay.
So I want to kind of pick a class that I don't have a lot of experience with. I really enjoyed the Druid class last time around. So that'd be a lot of fun. But also we need to have somebody be the Dark Urge.
We know Nadia's going to be the Dark Urge. Even if Nadia isn't the Dark Urge, Nadia is the Darker Urge.
The Dirge?
Yeah.
She's going to get us all killed.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Abby of the Moon is asking a video game Tinder ? This is a panel that Kenneth Shepard and I have done in person a couple years now at PAX East, and we're now going to do a online version here for the charity stream. I basically am making a bunch of fake Tinder profiles for video game characters. So like ones we've done in the past have been Aerith. Aerith was one of them. Lady Dimitrescu, Solid Snake, various different game. Mr. X was in there.
Yeah.
Bowser, Tom Nook. And the idea is that we pull up the profiles and then our panel of judges votes to swipe left or right on them. And it's just kind of like a fun, jokey kind of thing, but we're doing it online for the first time, so hopefully it goes well. It should be a good time. We'd like to have a lot of fun with those.
All going down starting next weekend. We are going to be streaming like crazy. I'm picking up my Nuzlocke run again.
Ooh.
I got Callie and Reb both hanging out with me while I continue to play. We'll see how far I get after another couple hours. I think we were making good progress last time I checked, so very excited about this one. Lots of great stuff. I think this is going to be the best charity stream to date.
We also have number 1 giveaways. We will have stuff to do giveaways of some kind. There was
I got a
one
PlayStation 5 sitting right over here.
That's awesome.
A full-on PlayStation 5. There's
Full-on
one harebrained
PS5.
scheme. One harebrained scheme I have that I don't know if it will actually come to fruition or not, but I need to follow up on that today to see if we can actually make it happen, because it'll be really fun if we do. And then number 2, oh my god, okay, Kat, show it off.
Oh yeah. Game of the year right here. The collector's edition for Unicorn Overlord. The Monarch edition. Very cool. Giving this away.
That has the card game in it. And the card game's actually kind of low-key fun. Yeah.
The card game is low-key fun.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have the Xbox jacket?
The Xbox jacket? Yeah, it's back here somewhere if we want to auction it. If somebody wants a used
that should
jacket.
Be a giveaway. That's a sick jacket.
It's a sick jacket. It's also a used jacket. So if somebody wants a used jacket,
you can have an Eric Van Allen used jacket.
Yeah, it's only like not like we can be like, oh, what size? It's the size they handed to me. So like that's really
No, for real. The jacket was, we went to the Xbox party and they gave everybody jackets with these patches for the various studios. And just generally as a on principle, I don't like to take gifts from publishers, game developers, that kind of thing, especially kind of expensive gifts. So I try to give them away during the streams when I can. But the jacket is pretty cool, actually. So we'll give it away to one lucky winner during the stream. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah. So we've got a used jacket to give away for anybody who wants that. And then we're also going to have incentives, as we always do, goals to unlock. I think we have not locked those down yet because some of them I need to like okay by you because they're a little crazy. A little harebrained.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Have I told you about the Sakaguchi quest yet?
I'm curious.
It's a crazy idea I had a while ago because I was like, we've done the console quest, we've done the PC quest, we've done the handheld quest. What have we not done? Well, we haven't done a developer quest yet. What if we did a quest like we used to do, but this time it's just every game that one developer worked on? Thus was born the Sakaguchi quest. Every Sakaguchi game leading up to Fantasian.
Wow, that's a big one. We can talk about it off stream, Eric. No,
well, that's why it's the high one. It's like the highest one I have, like way beyond even what my goal is for this stream. If we somehow reach the vaunted heights of way up there, then we'll Sakaguchi quest.
So we're all playing King's Knight and Rad Racer.
No, like if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it like right, like front to back. Like
Nakayama,
we're not skipping
Miho
games.
No Tokameki High School.
Are
we doing this thing?
Yeah.
It'll be like 8 episodes in, and we'll finally get to Final Fantasy.
Right now, I have it at the 20K mark. If we somehow raise $20,000 for Trans Lifeline, we should absolutely do the Sakaguchi quest.
Okay. I'm curious. Let's talk more.
You seem thrilled about this idea. You seem to love this idea.
Oh yeah, really.
I just found out about it.
Kat's gonna jump on a Discord call after this and be like, Eric, you're an ideas guy. I love this. Keep serving them up.
I love this for you. We do have some ideas about the podcast, including one thing that I've been thinking about, and this is maybe something that we can talk about in the post show as well, is finding ways to bring back kind of the spirit of being able to do the specials that we used to do. Because over the years, we've become more of a news-focused podcast and more of a current events-focused podcast. But once upon a time, we used to do a lot of stuff like the console RPG quest and the rankings and such that would take over entire episodes. And I think it brought in a lot of fans, and a lot of people still talk about how much they enjoyed those kinds of episodes. So I'm thinking about ways in which we can kind of get that spirit in there without sacrificing the current structure, which I'm actually really happy about. So anything else you want to plug about the charity stream, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, like, in all seriousness, we have a lot of stuff planned, a lot of like excellent games to play, a lot of stuff to do. We've been talking about it for a while. We haven't like super promoted it on socials or anything, but if y'all, when you see that stuff like go out, if you could start sharing it around and stuff like that, that would help a ton. And really, it's like, it's a charity stream. We want to give back, we want to benefit in some way, but even if you don't have the means to do so, just sharing and showing up is a lot, and would help us out and help raise awareness for the cause and all that. So, August 17th and 18th, if you got nothing else going on that weekend, nothing important, you can certainly help with a good cause and get in there, donate what you can to a really excellent charity in Trans Lifeline, and help us raise a bunch of funds for them, and maybe walk away with a game code or two or something like that. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Please look forward to it on twitch.tv/bloodgodpod. Time now to talk about our main topic of the episode, the state of the Soulsborne genre in 2024 as it slowly takes over RPGs as we know them. In just 10 days, well, actually more like 8 days as of the release of this podcast on our main feeds, Black Myth Wukong will be out on August 20th. A review is already leaked, Apparently, it's like 90 hours long.
Whoa.
This is too much, man.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
So long.
that's so long. Apparently, it's really hard, but it's also this review apparently was giving it Game of the Year hype, which is not surprising to me because it seems like a top tier Soulsborne in this day and age is sort of Game of the Year catnip, as it were, especially in the wake of Elden Ring. Elden Ring earlier this year, of course, released its Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I got about halfway through it, and then I was enjoying it, but it got to be a little bit much, and then I kind of pivoted back to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then I pivoted again back to Magic the Gathering Arena and Stardew Valley. I don't even know what this year is all about, but Soulsborne genre. First of all, I gotta know, Alex, what is your relationship with the Soulsborne genre?
Yeah, I got into it pretty late, honestly. I want to say 2018, 2019. I really started to get into it in earnest after playing Bloodborne, and have really come to enjoy the genre. I haven't played all the entries, but I've played and beat several, and I love the world design of like how levels are laid out. The shortcuts are really intriguing to me, and I've just really come to love the genre. And I have played Black Myth Wukong earlier this year at Summer Game Fest, and I am looking forward to that game. But yeah, I think my favorite Soulsborne game is probably Elden Ring. I have not started the DLC yet because I was on a work trip when it came out, and then I just kept putting it off. So I've yet to start it, but I'm really looking forward to it quite a lot. Yeah, I love the challenge to come with them. I don't like the Soulsborne games that are too dark. Like I played the what
Literally too dark or just too grim?
Too grim is a better way to put it. I played Lords of the Fallen, the reboot, and that was just a little much for me in terms of the imagery and just the. I need a little bit of beauty in it, right? I don't want it. I don't want just scorn and decay. I need something.
Feeling bad all the time.
Yeah, I need something there. Oh, like let me appreciate this architecture in Bloodborne, or you round a bend and the Dark Souls games, you've got this beautiful vista, right? I need something like that to kind of keep me going. Otherwise, it's just a little too foreboding for me.
Something that I find interesting about the Soulsborne genre is that there's a definite spectrum. On the one side are the Sekiros of the world, which I think Black Myth Wukong might be trending more in that direction. Very parry-focused, very action-focused. Tends to de-emphasize the RPG mechanics. And then you just slowly move along that spectrum until you get to the other side, which I would venture to say, is it fair to say that Elden Ring is as far along the actual RPG spectrum as you're going to get with this subgenre?
I mean, like anything more RPG at this point is going to have to start incorporating a party and stuff like that, like some real staples of. And I mean, like in some ways, you kind of already have a party in Elden Ring with your summons and all that. So you could argue that there is a party mechanic in Elden Ring. But like, I think anymore, and you're starting to get really bogged down in what would turn it into more of a like wizardry almost. Like you're getting really close to that at that point. So.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say those are the two sides that like the pendulum swings between.
Mm-hmm.
The pendulum of doom.
Yes.
That's probably going to cut off your head.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think the interesting like dichotomy there is like when an attack is coming at you, do you roll or do you parry? And that's kind of like what ends up being the defining feel for the game, and Bloodborne somehow like split the difference. It was like, normally do you roll or do you parry, and Bloodborne was like, what if shoot? And that ended up working really, really well. And I think Bloodborne kind of lives on its own in like a third category that even Lies of P couldn't really like completely, imitate. It got some of the way there. It had some ideas and some vibes that felt right, but there's something about Bloodborne that it was so different and unique that no one else has really managed to capture that. And so maybe that's like the mysterious, it fits the vibe of Bloodborne that it exists in this like weird outer realm of like other Soulsborne.
Other Soulsborne. Talk to me a little. It's been about 15 years now since the Soulsborne genre, as we knew it, started to burst into the mainstream, thanks to Demon Souls, and then Dark Souls continued that trajectory, though it was still arguably kind of a niche enterprise. And slowly but surely, over the years, it's ramped up and become more and more popular until many, many, many games, from Hollow Knight to Blasphemous to Lord knows what, started to integrate at least some, even heck, Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, I was going to say Star Wars. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars started to integrate some sort of Soulsborne mechanic, like the campfires and that kind of thing. Talk to me about this genre's sort of fundamental appeal. Why does it just seem to have grabbed onto so many different people?
I think one of the main things I think of, because like how I got hooked onto the Souls genre at first, was you just hear like, oh, it's hard, and it's like got a weird story that you want to check out. And so when I got Dark Souls 1 way back when, I kind of like got into it, messed around with it, and bounced out of it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't really have anybody else that I knew that was playing it. Whereas Dark Souls 2, when that came out, I got way into Dark Souls 2, and I think I've told the story on here before about how I went to the rat cave where you could join their brotherhood of rats and invade other people who were trying to go into the rat cave. And if you use the bonfire aesthetics, you could up the new game plus of the realm, and whoever like you invaded, they would get put into your new game plus. So I had like a new game plus 7 rat cave that people would get dragged into, and I would run around naked with 2 giant clubs and beat the crap out of them while these evil rats were like mauling them. Yeah, I was Bam Bam. It was great. And that's the thing, though, is I found this thing that was like, oh, this is not just a game to play. I think that's maybe something that a lot of Souls knockoffs, imitators miss, is that like Souls is not just about the action RPG elements. If it was that easy, it would be really easy to replicate. I do think that like the social layer is a major part of it, and not just the social layer in the game of like leaving messages, the tri-finger butthole and stuff like that, but like it's also about
very memey.
Oh yeah, it's out of game too. Like there's something about playing this game like Elden Ring and going to your friend and being like, "Oh, I found this crazy thing. Have you been over here yet?" And they're like, "No, I opened a box and wound up in the third impact." And it's like that's what like all this stuff is. It's like you want to explore it, you want to talk to people about it, and I think that is the essence of a like FromSoft game to me. I remember I was talking to people who were playing Elden Ring early, and they were actually kind of sad about it because they were like, you can only really talk to maybe like 2 or 3 other reviewers, depending, and like kind of be like, oh, I found this thing over here. It's not the same as playing it at launch and everybody's just running everywhere and all this wild stuff is popping up and you're just amazed at what's happening. And there is something about the like social aspect of these games that really does drive them for me, that I think it's undersold.
Yeah, I think there's so many secrets interwoven into the world. The fact that you've got RPG, like equipment systems and such. Like there are so many little things that FromSoft or whichever developer can sprinkle in to make it worth exploring. Like even if it's just a new shield or a new weapon, like having that carrot on a stick that encourages exploration, and then you're rewarded for doing that is, I think, a big part of the genre. And also I really think you get to know a lot of these spaces and become familiar with them because of the difficulty, because of the bonfire system you are supposed to be running through, learning the routes, farming to get better, and you just slowly are I think it wouldn't be nearly as sticky of a genre without that piece where like you really are getting to know these levels in and out in a way that I think without those pieces you might just be running through that level and you wouldn't be coming back, right? Without that piece, I think you're missing something. So I think that's also kind of core to the experience.
And like there have been people who have said that Castlevania is like a precursor to Souls and all that, and I think that's where that plays in. That's where that feels right, is these levels that kind of layer over themselves that you trek across, but you also gain a familiarity with, is very Metroid, is very Castlevania in a way that, like, yeah, Castlevania has the aesthetics of a Souls game, certainly, but like that's where I think the inspiration, the ideation comes from, is like, here is this level that is not just kind of a zone you're going to move through and be done with. Even in Demon Souls, where it is much more like you're going world by world, almost like a Mario game, you do have these places that you become intimately familiar with because you're dying and returning and finding new paths and finding shortcuts and stuff like that. You get to know these places. And so places like Caelid or Sen's Fortress become these like things that you can just imagine in your mind when you hear them.
Yeah, and on another thing, we mentioned Star Wars. I think there are some Soulsborne games that don't really. You mentioned, Eric, Elden Ring almost feeling like you have a party with your summons and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through story, specifically the Star Wars Jedi games, it almost feels like you have a party because, you're running back through these worlds and running past your team so many times. You're consulting them before you go out. That game in particular, that series, does a really good job of making NPCs feel like they're actually part of your party, where I think other Soulsborne games don't quite do that. And I think partially that's due to the stickiness of the Star Wars franchise. You've got this rich roster of characters that you can tap into. And I think it just comes together to make like a really cool recipe for a game. I love Star Wars Jedi Survivor is one of my favorite Souls likes. I think it's up there with Bloodborne, and I don't think it's quite as polished and pure as maybe Bloodborne is, but it's up there in terms of like my enjoyment and seeing those. I mentioned, like, I really want those beautiful vistas. Like, I want to earn that view, right? I want to come out of a series of challenges and just be blown away. And Star Wars does that so well.
I'm glad you brought up the like characters and also like returning to them, because that is another thing I think FromSoft does so well that like the best imitators or like inspirations do take from is Souls games have bonfires, but they also have like kind of a home base of some kind. The thing that we refer to as like the Normandy on this show, right? Like the traveling campfire. You have the Nexus, you have Firelink Shrine, which is kind of iffy, but like kind of works. I think Majula is one of my favorite ones from Dark Souls 2. And then obviously you have the Hunter's Dream and the Round Table Hold in Elden Ring. These places that you like return to, characters are there, you talk to them, their dialogue changes over time. It's very RPG, like extremely RPG. And I think the best moments in those games, maybe not the best, but like some of my favorites are when that changes. Like when something changes there, when a character moves, when a character is saying something new. When you go back to the Round Table Hold and you get invaded, ooh, that was like a top tier moment for me. That was such a good moment. And like even the Hunter's Dream, the way it changes as stuff in Bloodborne changes, is so cool. And that's sort of the other thing, is that like I don't think good Souls games get enough credit for letting you like change the world with your actions, because that is like a major part of the best ones for me, is that like I do something and I have had an irreversible effect on the world, usually making it worse.
Yeah.
and that's like really exciting to me because it's like, oh, I've had an impact in this game. Something has changed. And I haven't played the new Lords of the Fallen, but I played the old one because they have like the same name. It's really weird. I played the old one where you basically play as like
2016.
Yeah. You play as like this big beefy dude who's like I remember thinking he was basically a space marine, but he's not a space marine, but he's like built and looks like a space marine. And you just like run around as a beefy dude, and there's like souls you gotta collect, and you're doing stuff. Like I barely remember the plot of that game because I remember it just being like they saw the mechanics, they understood what constitutes a game in this genre, but it didn't feel like they latched onto what makes a good game in this genre, especially like the smaller details that really do put FromSoft above and beyond, and also make them more appealing to people beyond just who you would think would be interested in Souls games. Because there are a lot of people who would say they're not into challenging games, they're not into like, you know, Super Meat Boy, like Kaizo stuff or anything like that, but they play Elden Ring. Like they want to play this stuff. I think there's something to that.
I think like being able to retreat a bit from whatever boss you're currently stuck on, go and farm. I mean, if you're willing to farm, you can make those games so much easier for yourselves. I mean, FromSoft does a great job in their games. A great example is Margit Shackle in Elden Ring. The first boss that's a huge roadblock for a lot of people. There's an item that you can go and find, I believe, who's that little annoying guy?
Oh, Patches.
Patches.
That's in all of their games. Yeah.
You can go and find Patches in a cave, and you can purchase this item that will shackle the boss, and it makes it so much easier. Like if you're willing to go and explore and find those things, or even if you didn't find that shackle, you could farm enough to get it to where you're powerful enough to kind of be an even match for the boss. And I like that it rewards that patience or that drive. Like I think that's a neat thing. Not all of them do it. But I think the good ones do.
So I'm looking at the list of games that Eric put on here. Neo, Wolong, Fallen Dynasty, Stranger of Paradise.
Stranger of Paradise. Shout outs to the Discord that's been playing
Paradise?
That. Yeah.
Remnant plus Remnant 2. Lords of the Fallen, The Surge, Salt and Sanctuary, Code Vein, Ashen, Another Crab's Treasure, Lies of P. And there are a couple things that jump out at me. One is, much like we have RPG elements, where another genre borrows elements from an RPG, like loot or stats, but that does not make it an RPG. You have games that have Soulsborne elements, but are not necessarily Soulsbornes, so to speak. I think Hollow Knight is actually a prime example of a game that definitely borrows Soulsborne elements and in some ways is a Soulsborne-like, but definitely hedges much more toward traditional Metroidvania. But of course, Elden Ring and Dark Souls borrow a ton from Castlevania, so what can I say? But the second thing that jumps out at me is most of these games are not what I would call super mainstream. I don't know if there's any that quite rise to the level of the mainstream appeal of, say, an Elden Ring or a Dark Souls. From Software is 1000% the king of this genre. Why is it so hard to make a true, not necessarily competitor, but a game that rises to that level of popularity? And can Black Myth Wukong do it?
I mean, Alex can probably speak better to whether Black Myth can do it or not, because having actually played it and stuff, but I do think all the stuff we just talked about is that the same way we were talking about on the Pokemon Pantheon, where there are a lot of people that try to make a Pokemon game, but I think they kind of miss the forest for the trees. They kind of look at what gameplay mechanics wise, what constitutes a Pokemon
Very
game.
surface level.
Yeah, you collect creatures, you battle them. We should make that battle system even more intricate and stuff like that. I think the same thing happens with Smash Brothers too, where a lot of people make Smash-alikes, and they get kind of the general idea of what makes that appealing, but no one can ever really capture the magic of the original. And there's a lot of different things that constitute that. It's not the easiest. I actually think one of the better Smash-alikes, Rivals of Aether, gets really, really close by trying to hone in on just what mechanically feels good in a Smash game. Why does it feel so good to play something like Melee? And it really does. It doesn't try to recreate Melee necessarily. It tries to make a new version of that. And I think it works really well because of that. We see that a lot in fighting games because people will take stuff like Marvel, for example, and be like, how do we recreate the feeling of why it felt so good to play Marvel in the first place? So with FromSoft, I think we have not seen a lot of studios really capture that. Or when they do, I think they end up doing a spin on it. So like Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are vaguely Souls-like, take ideas from Souls, but then also incorporate other ideas. They're a little bit more approachable. They're not
Souls-tastic.
There's no real
Soulsonic.
Correct me if I'm forgetting something, but I don't remember Jedi having a ton of like leveling up and stuff like that. I feel like you were mostly getting items that were making you more powerful. I don't remember there being like a level system, but I might have forgotten. It's like been years since I played Fallen Order.
There is Fallen Order.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of
I haven't played Survivor yet, so
okay. There is like the meditate where you can fill in your points to unlock new moves and such.
Right. But you're not like leveling up and being like, I have more strength now and stuff like that, right?
Typically, no. I mean, there might be one that'll give you a little more vitality, but yeah, you're not you're not leveling up your stamina or your strength.
Yeah, you're not being like, I'm Dex Faith or whatever, right? Like you don't have a build. No. That's another aspect of FromSoft that they got real right, is like the builds and the stats, and we could talk for hours about that. But I think the other game I think of when I think of Souls games that took inspiration then did something different, and honestly one of my favorites in the genre so far, Sifu. Like Sifu was incredible. Is Sifu
a genre?
Oh
is
yeah.
That a Souls-like?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
Really? Yeah, it's really tough too.
It's really difficult.
I played it. It's really good.
I would put it on that Sekiro side of the spectrum because it is about parrying and like
parry.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But like I would say the way it's constructed with its levels, the shortcuts, the way you kind of get very familiar with those levels, the way you gain power by completing the levels and by taking down enemies, the way that I think their interesting twist was to think like, okay, so what if death doesn't set you just back to a bonfire, but what if death is this mechanic where you're reviving and then gaining years, and eventually you will like perish because of how many years you have gained. You're like getting older as you like resurrect more and more and more, and it creates this sense of like you are optimizing the run. I think most Souls players, especially like early Dark Souls, I think nowadays they're a lot more lenient with this, but early Dark Souls, the run back to bosses was always the thing. Like it's not just about beating the boss, it's about getting through the run back to the boss and then getting through the boss fight. Sifu is about that run back. Sifu is like, you want to go fight this boss again, you're not just going to have to go fight this boss. You're going to have to get through the entire, like all the different sections up to this point and optimize them and not drop lives and like save your health and stuff like that. And I think it really honed in on that and found something really interesting there. Their previous game, Absolver, was also fascinating for completely different reasons, but Sifu was just a really cool version of that, and I do think that's what people have to do to succeed versus like, I'm not saying that all games that aren't doing that are just completely just lifting from Souls, but I think there's a lot of games that just try to do a FromSoft game and don't put enough spin on the ball, if that makes sense.
I think there is also more of a cultural advantage that Japanese game developers might have in the way that or maybe not, cultural is the wrong word maybe, but like the Japanese law, it makes it very hard to lay off employees, right? Japanese labor laws kind of tend to lead to more institutional knowledge at these developers because there are people. I mean, I've been lucky enough to visit a Game Informer. I've been lucky enough to visit, Square and Capcom and FromSoft, and you'll just be passing by people along the halls that that person's been here for almost 30 years, and they're just still working away and doing their thing. And I think, countries with that lack that sort of protection for workers, typically the studios that operate there are more prone to layoffs and such, and reduction in workforces, that you lose a lot of that momentum and knowledge that comes with having more protections in place. And I think, FromSoft being a Japan-based company, I think there's like some of that element at play. And I think regardless of genre, that is a factor in. I think Japanese game developers produce a lot of quality games because of that fact, that you have those folks who have just been there doing it for decades. That I think it's harder to find that elsewhere.
I think that From Software stands out not just because their production quality has taken a quantum leap over the past decade. It's obvious that they just have so much more money than they used to these days.
Yeah.
And you see it in Armored Core, you see it in Elden Ring, where it's still a very quirky series of games and everything, but production quality wise, like Elden Ring looks incredible. Mm-hmm. But also just how quirky these games are. They have a quirky sense of humor. They have a lot of just weird things about them, weird characters that lend themselves toward memes and online in-jokes and comics. And that's not something that's easy to replicate, I don't think. And so you can do the surface level, it's a dark and mournful place where you're fighting lots of enemies while running through swamps and dark dungeons and everything. But there's also a weird sort of joyfulness to it. And then when I think that Elden Ring in particular gets it's a very long and very exhausting discussion about whether or not these games are accessible, but I think that it may not be easy, but they're easier to pick up than you think. Like if you play Elden Ring, it's surprisingly easy to figure out where you are, get your bearings, get your horse, and immediately just start exploring the world. And that doorway into this giant open world, yes, there are very big roadblocks where it's like, okay, well, welcome to the actual game now. But a game like, I think Neo will kick your teeth in almost immediately and then step on your throat. And maybe that's the difference.
I felt that way about Wolong last year. That game, just from the start, just ruthless.
Yeah, there's I do think people overplay the difficulty of these games sometimes. Not that they're not difficult, but I think that FromSoft has been getting better, and maybe put Shadow of the Erdtree off to the side because that's a complicated discussion. But I think they've been getting better about the on-ramp to you will hit roadblocks, but they give you a lot of tools to deal with those things. And I think one of my favorite sections, especially boss fights in FromSoft history, is Father Gascon in Bloodborne, because he's the first actual boss. Like you can fight Cleric Beast. I think Cleric Beast is technically optional, but Father Gascon is the first mandatory boss fight in that game, and he exists to just teach you how the game works. All his moves are you should parry this. You should probably shoot me to parry this, or I'm going to dragon punch you into the air and slam you down. And enemies will transform. They will have different modes. They can fight like you, but they can also fight like a beast. And I think everything about Father Gascon is so perfect and such an encapsulation of what that game is. I think FromSoft is very good at that, about saying early on, here are these bosses, these Margits, your Godfreys and stuff like that, that are going to teach you things about this game. I forgot the name of it, but the one in Dark Souls 1 where you're on the rampart and you can climb up one of the is it a steeple that you call that on a rampart of a castle wall? You climb up a steeple or whatever, and you can jump off and land on it and do a landing attack. And you can do that at the very beginning of the game too with that first guardian that you fight in the jail. It teaches you like, hey, don't always fight head on. Like, think about your environment and what you could do to maybe fight this demon, this giant foe who's way larger than you and hits way harder than you, how you could kill it. And they're very good about creating situations that do, maybe they teach you it by like smacking you in the face a little bit, but they're like, hey, poof, go that way.
Yeah, were you talking about the is it the Taurus demon?
Maybe the Taurus demon. Look, I love Dark Souls 1, but all the names of bosses in Dark Souls 1 are not as evocative as FromSoft would eventually
Google it.
Because there's like the Capra demon as well, and the Taurus demon, the something guardian. Like they did cook on some. They had like the wolf Sif and all that, but like they got a little bit better at the evocative names later on, you know, like Mikolash and Rom, the vacuous spider, and Great General Radon and all that, you know.
Grant me eyes, grant me eyes.
You know, if we just had more eyes, we could see better. I understand it.
Where does the Souls genre go from here, especially as it relates to being RPGs? Do you see it becoming more RPG-like or less RPG-like? Will it lean more into the open world action or more into the builds?
I don't think they ever go back to, I mean, I think maybe if FromSoft does a new IP the way they did Bloodborne or Sekiro, or if they did a Sekiro too, they'd go back to a more constrained thing. But I think whatever project is next, whether it's like Elden Ring 2 or like a spiritual successor to Elden Ring, it's got to be open world. Like I feel like that is that ripcord has been pulled. You can't uncook that brownie. That's a weird analogy for me to use. I don't know why I used it.
Uncook that brownie.
But like,
and the brownie kills you because it's a Soulsborne game.
The brownie
or
has a
eating
poison
it
swamp
sends
inside
you to the end of Evangelion.
Like 3 different jokes just passed through my head, and I was like, can't say that on stream, can't say that on stream, can't say that on stream. Okay. Watch Evangelion. But like, I do think where it goes from here, I think the idea of does it get more into the builds is interesting, because as much as I just said, I really like the way that FromSoft has created this like strength dex and faith int sort of dichotomy. I do feel like they have sort of made that the standard for themselves, if that makes sense. Like that is the thing that you expect going in now, is like, okay, am I going strength faith or am I going like dex int? Even before a game comes out, you can start being like, is that what I'm going to do? I think they've tried to find other ways to build. Like bleed builds were really big in Elden Ring and still are in Elden Ring. You could do like an arcane bleed build. But I'm curious to see if with whatever they make next, they start experimenting more with how can we take the system that I think works very, very well and like change the way people think about it. Like shift the spectrum of what's possible in there. Maybe not lose some of the core tenets, the pillars of the stat system, keep that idea of big swing versus fast swing, you know, faith versus int feels very arbitrary at times, but like faith is kind of like your cleric spells and then int is like your wizard spells. But maybe find some way to like, what is another wrinkle we can add to this that won't detract from what we have, but add something new. I do think that's genuinely something that I would be interested to see an evolution in.
I could see them trying to evolve the summon system in the game, how it currently operates, like with fog doors in particular, where you'll summon a helper, they'll join you for the fight, and they're gone. I could see them trying to blow that out into almost more of like a pawn system, or just something a little more robust, where like I don't think they would go like full multiplayer. Where like you're just playing co-op with your buddy and going around, right? I could see them though fleshing out that summon system into having more fully fledged companions join you on your journey, and maybe it's one at a time, right? But let's say I'm like fighting Godric the Grafted, and there's that warrior princess I can go and find and recruit her to my party or my band and war band and play through the maybe it's just you play through the dungeon with them by your side. But I think that would be a cool evolution that I could see them trying to mess with that sort of.
A party-based Soulsborne would be cool. I feel like one was recently announced. That would be interesting, but I would like to see From Software's approach to it, because everybody would be broken in some way.
Like, that's what I kind of thought Erdtree was
Very
going
Darkest Dungeon to it.
Yeah. Like, I thought Erdtree was going to start messing with that, because even from the outset when we were playing the previews and stuff, it was very like Band of the Hawk. Like, this is and we can't have a podcast about Souls and the evolution of Souls without saying that like Berserk is a major part of that. Like, it is nigh impossible to separate the influence of Berserk from the Souls genre, all the way up to Shadow of the Erdtree. And I did like that idea. I thought they did some really clever things with how those storylines evolved across the Erdtree DLC, the way they ultimately end up affecting the final dungeon and things like that. They did some really clever stuff. And I think that plus their experiments with the Shadow Tree Blessings. Sorry, my southern just came out.
I was gonna say, well, damn,
the Shadow Tree Blessings. The Shadow Tree Blessings that were kind of like a new way to think about how you level in a From game, and I think were maybe a bit divisive. I do feel like you can see in that DLC the way that FromSoft is like, how could we do other stuff? You know, let's try this within like a closed ecosystem and test it out and see like, you know, what is resonating, what works, what's different. Because there's a lot in that DLC that is a surprising departure from systems that they've used before or just evolutions of those systems. And so I think that's exciting for me, is to see that like FromSoft, even now, off the back of their greatest game ever, is not just going like, well, let's make Elden Ring 2. And like, instead is still being like, how could we change things to make them different or more interesting or just new and fresh?
Will you play Black Myth Wukong really quickly, Alex?
Yeah, I did. I played it for about an hour. I beat the first main boss, I believe, giant wolf creature. I apologize. I've long forgotten the names of the bosses and NPCs I fought. But I was really impressed with it, honestly. I wasn't sure going into it. You know, you never really know. I feel like this game's been shrouded also in some controversy with the reporting that you all have done at IGN, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, so I was kind of going in with my guard up, and I think the game itself, though, is really impressive. I think it's probably my favorite part of it was how they are implementing characters from seemingly the Journey to the West, the book that it's all based on, the text that it's based on. And I really liked the characters that I came across, that they were compelling. It was a mixture of, I think the demo I played took place on this Blackwind Mountain, I think it was called. And as you're you know, charting your way to the summit at the top, which is where the main boss lies, I mean, I ran into like 5 or 6 optional bosses, and you're fighting against, you know, these cool fox and wolf enemies that feel like they're just like this forest clan, and you're kind of trotting on their territory. And I really enjoyed like the narrative, the wrappings that all of it took place in. I mentioned I don't really love the grim, foreboding environments, and this was the exact opposite of what I typically see in Souls-like games. It was lush, it was really pretty, it was a pleasant place to be, and then you've got these characters that are a lot of them anthropomorphic and just larger than life, and it feels really different. And I think the game also plays really well. I very quickly got up to speed on the mechanics. I think it felt really polished. One really cool detail that I actually didn't know this was a thing before going into my preview session was that when you kill certain bosses, you will unlock the ability to transform into them later on in other boss fights.
What?
You kind of have them in like your Rolodex of items. And so I fought this giant wolf that was guarding a shrine. I believe he was just an optional boss. Like I just like found him in a grove, and he had this giant dual wielding flame scythe and this pole arm. And I finally beat him after like 4 tries. And not only did he drop a really cool wolf mask that I got to equip, that I believe increased my critical strike damage. I don't know if it's damage or percentage, like chance to hit on weak enemies. And it was kind of like going along with that, like that wolf theme, right? Like just this ferocious play style. But then he also dropped this new item that I was able to add. It was a spell. And I was able to transform into the wolf really whenever I wanted. I used it during I kept using it during the boss fight against this large boss at the top of the summit. And you transform into them, and you have a totally new set of skills that are either direct copies or inspired by the boss itself when you were fighting it earlier in the game. It's a really cool system. I'm excited to see how they further implement that. I could see that becoming really, really an interesting system to play with as you're doing it. Sorry, I'm trying to think of it if there's anything else. It's been a few months since I played it. But yeah, I was really.
So are you gonna play the full game?
Oh yeah, when coming out of Summer Game Fest, I told my coworkers at Game Informer that it was now my most anticipated game for the year.
Wow.
Yeah, and I that's typically not my reaction, I'd say, to most Souls likes. You know, I enjoy playing them, but it always comes with a bit of skepticism. You know, we've kind of mentioned the wide range of quality when it comes to, you know, the genre and like what you're getting. And so I going into it, I was pretty skeptical, and coming out of it, I was pretty excited, and still am. So
I will do my due diligence and play it for work, not the least because it's pretty obvious that this is going to be a very big game.
Yeah.
That said, I'm giving it a chance to win me over.
That's a fair way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it does seem very big and very long, and it's one of those situations where you're already a little full, and you sit down at a very large meal, and you go, do this. But I will see how I feel about it, and I hope I end up liking it. What about you, Eric?
I actually, so fun fact for those at home, I built this new PC to be the battle station for the charity stream, and buying a brand new graphics card at the time I did rewarded me with a free code for Black Myth Wukong. So I just have it. So I'll probably poke around at it. It seems like a good game to kind of like kick the graphics card on and see how it works. But the reporting notwithstanding, and that's honestly something that if it concerns you, you should look it up.
It's definitely part of the game's background.
Yeah, the DNA
for sure, worth bringing up.
Absolutely.
But I am curious about it just because I've always been interested in the Wukong story. It was like a thing for a while that if you played MOBAs, especially whenever that MOBA was trying to appeal to a Chinese audience or was going to China for the first time, they would introduce the character Wukong. Like there's a Wukong in Dota, there's a Wukong in League of Legends, there's a Wukong in Warframe, I believe. I think Warframe has a version of Wukong, the character, as a frame. And so I was always kind of curious, like, why is this character so resonant? Like why is this the character that kind of always seems to come up?
Journey, the sort of the Son Goku Journey to the West character.
Yeah, because like there are some other like legendary characters that you could probably draw comparisons to, like King Arthur and stuff like that. It's like, why? But I don't know anything about Journey to the West or Wukong, and so I'm like very interested in like what is appealing about this character, and I think it's cool that we're getting a version of that. Like, here's a video game version of this character, this fable, not like here's Wukong, but like in the world of League of Legends, like we just kind of put him there. But like who is this character? Like, why are they interesting? I'm fascinated to see that.
Charity stream incentive: Journey to the West book club.
Journey to the West book club.
You know, it's
Okay.
funny you say
Yeah.
that because in my preview for Game Informer at the end, like my conclusion was really kind of like, we'll see on how the game turns out, but at the very least, it has really made me interested in reading the text that it's from. Like, I thought it was a great, taster, a great preview of kind of the whole book. But it's also interesting that Wukong is a side character in the book. He's like an accompanying spirit that accompanies the monk that the story centers on.
Interesting.
And there's others as well, but Wukong seems to be one of those characters that one of those figures that people really cling to.
He's the future Trunks of his story, where like the character shows up. And you're
Having
like,
not
I
read
like
the
that
book,
character.
Sure. Yeah, he's Trunks.
Yeah, we gotta play some
When I think
Fortnite
of-
soon. See, Trunks is coming to that.
Oh no, I didn't.
Some leaks are
Really?
saying Trunks is coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, he coming.
We're gonna need to drop.
Hold on.
We're gonna need to drop.
yeah. Anytime, man. I'm level 170 right now in
Oh my
Fortnite.
god.
The battle pass ends
too
at
high.
100. The battle pass ends at 100, and I just kept going.
In case you didn't know, if Alex Van Aken is currently unemployed.
Oh, that was before I was
You
employed.
play
That was before I was unemployed. I haven't played any Fortnite since being unemployed.
Wow.
Wild.
I haven't had time.
All right, that's our discussion of the state of Soulsbornes in the year 2024. Are you planning to play Black Myth Wukong? Dear listener, let me know. cat@blogoutpod.com or over on our Discord, which again, you can join for just $1 a month at patreon.com/blogoutpod. Okay, it's time now for a series of random encounters. Arcane co-founder Rafael Colantonio is teasing Wolfeye Studios' next project, a first-person action RPG set in an alternate 20th century America. I'm excited to play this, actually. Arcane Season 2 has leaked, along with a good chunk of Netflix's fall catalog. Netflix has said that they are aggressively investigating, but episodes of Rama 1/2 are out there. The entirety of Terminator Zero came out. It's a pretty wild situation, actually. Destiny has acknowledged the uncertainty following its layoffs and said that it will be sharing more info soon on Destiny's, quote, multi-year journey. Go check out last week's discussion about what the heck happened to Bungie and Destiny and its relationship to RPGs in general. It was a really good conversation. Larian has released new player stats in honor of Baldur's Gate 3's anniversary. Notable takeaways: 27 million people shared a kiss with Shadowheart, 15 million with Asterion, and poor Minthara only got 169k. That's because I murdered her butt. She dead. Though I want to get her. I would really love to recruit her on our next run. That'd be a lot of fun.
That's what we'll do. We'll do the strat to recruit
I wore her
Minthara.
Can we
little
get Minthara?
undergarment
You wore her
Yeah.
undergarments?
the entire campaign on my half-orc wizard. Not to be weird. It just looked cool. I don't know. When it came out
It's
of my
not
mouth, it sounded
weird.
Alex, that's weird.
Yeah, it was loot. Damn it.
I looked good.
Yeah.
And around 197k players banged Bear Form Helson. Good job, all of you. An NVIDIA driver update is leading to speculation that Final Fantasy XVI's PC port could be arriving very soon, and maybe I'll even play it. Speaking of, Square Enix's sales dropped year over year despite the launch of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but it still turned a profit on its games thanks to lower development cost amortization. I love business terms.
Yay.
And finally, yay, business! Profit! Capitalism.
I included that one just because I wanted you hear you say the word amortization without like any like warning or be like, hey Kat, just be aware there's this word in there, and you handled it well. You did well.
Thank you. There's been some tongue twisters in this random encounters, and I think that I've been doing great.
I've been having
honestly.
some fun with it. You know, just throwing some
Thank
rocks
you.
in the road.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, an FF14 mobile game has been approved in China. Okay, we're rolling into the tavern. We're settling in next to the fire, warming our hands. Alex, you're our special guest.
Yes.
What have you been playing and or watching or just want to talk about?
Yeah, I have been watching Below Deck, a reality TV show about a crew of people, a party of people.
Well, you really are laid off, aren't you?
Hold on. He might be cooking.
They all have
party.
different jobs on the ship. This party of people have jobs.
Do they grow and gain skills?
No, they don't.
they regress.
Usually they get fired like 2 charters into the boat season.
You combine the jobs into...
Actually, yes. Sometimes the deckhand can spec into cooking. I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've been watching a lot of reality TV lately. It's my comfort thing. I love the Love Islands, the Bravo reality television shows. It's my go-to. As far as games that I've been playing, I've kind of been hopping around a lot, honestly. We mentioned Fortnite and my 170 levels in that. I recently played Thank Goodness You're Here.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyed that. It's 2 to 3 hours long. Great little adventure game. Hilarious. If you're a fan of, if you like British humor or you like, Matt? Why can't
Matt
I remember
Berry.
his name? Yeah, thank you. Matt Berry voices a character in it. So if you're a fan of What We Do in the Shadows, or one of his other shows, that's a really good.
I am a fan of that show, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited to see the final season.
Yeah. I'm. I need to catch up. Guillermo. If you don't know what we're talking about, if you've ever seen the clip of the vampire who says Arizonia, that's Matt Berry.
The superb owl.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the superb owl joke came from What We Do in the Shadows until that episode.
Yeah, I didn't either. So I've really been enjoying that, and other than that, honestly, I've just kind of been going to when Marvel Rivals was up, I was playing a lot with Eric. We were playing a good amount, and yeah, I've kind of just been
excited about that game. I kind of want to play it.
I was not excited for it. That was one I played at Summer Game Fest, and I left just kind of feeling
a little cold.
Yeah, and that's a common. I've heard that from a lot of people actually that played the game. First hour or two, kind of cold on it, and then that Marvel Disney kind of whimsy kind of starts to kick in, and you're like, I'm having fun.
It's Marvel, baby.
It's Marvel, baby.
It's something you can like shovel in your mouth, right? Like it's like it's
candy.
Game-based gruel, huh?
It feels really weird to say, but there is something about like a game that is not exceptional in its own terms. Like it's well put together, it's well made, but like it's not something that's like blowing my mind, but it's something I can put on, especially like if you have a friend group that is all getting together and you're playing as like a social setting. Like social can raise the bar for a lot of games if it facilitates it well, and I think Marvel Rivals does facilitate it well. It's very snappy to get into a game. I think a lot of their systems are about like teaming up with each other, so we were having fun with the synergies and stuff like that of like the one we were really liking recently was like Hera and Loki and Thor all have a synergy that works really, really well together. I would play Luna Snow and someone else would play Namor, so that way we could get like the super turrets and all that. There's a lot of like little cool stuff in there.
The team ups, like those are, I think, the thing that the game has running for it the most that makes it stand out from the rest. Because it really makes it feel like you're on a team and you're not just another hero shooters. Like you kind of just pick your favorite, right, and you go from there. I found in Marvel Rivals a lot of time I'm not playing my favorite, but I'm playing somebody who complements my teammate, or maybe they'll let me play my favorite and they'll pick somebody to complement me, and it just kind of changes the dynamic a bit of playing a multiplayer game. Kind of being a little uncomfortable, but contributing to the larger team's synergy together. It's an interesting element.
One of the quirks, speaking of Marvel, one of the quirks of my job is that in addition to video games, which itself is a full-time job covering, I also have to cover entertainment. And last night, this weekend is D23.
Okay.
D23 is a very large sort of fan gathering, official fan gathering. It's sort of like Star Wars Celebration, but for all of Disney as a whole.
I never knew this was something you could just attend.
So
Oh, yeah.
this is like, I used to wonder because people would be like, what is E3? What are you talking about? I'd be like, how do you not know what E3 is? And then when people started being like D23, I understand it now. I hear it.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the way that like we hear D23 and we're like, what is that? Like what do you mean there's some crazy convention where all the Disney people show up? That's how we sound when we talk about E3 and Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, it's like, so you're getting together for your little shows.
Imagine if Xbox just decided that it was going to have its own convention.
Okay.
And
It's the
that
PlayStation experience.
That it would have lots of panels within that.
All right.
And that it would have a very large live show actually like happening in a convention center. Like the D23 did a 3-hour showcase. 3 hours in the Honda Center, which is where the Anaheim Ducks of Anaheim play.
Oh.
And they showed so many trailers and announcements. They announced The Incredibles 3. They showed first new info about Toy Story 5. Toy Story 5 is going to be about the toys finally reckoning with tablets and devices.
Yeah. I actually
Toys
am
versus
down
tech.
with that. I haven't seen Toy Story 4.
I like 4, by the way. It was all right.
I've heard, people.
It was a good epilogue.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
I'm down for the iPad
Toy Story
kit art.
5. Toy Story 4 ended the story.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's
Not
almost
gonna be an
maybe it's
anthology.
Toy Story Gaiden.
Finally, the Woody who lost his name. I find it fascinating, not just because it is like an entire expo, like a PlayStation experience, but for Disney, but like it's also not streamed for some baffling reason that I don't like. Comic-Con does this too, but I don't get why. Is like they host these panels where they get up there and they have celebrities talking and they show trailers and they have all these like incredible things and they don't live stream any of it, and they just rely on people in the crowd taking photos.
This is a very common thing. Also, there's an event called CinemaCon where they'll show trailers and exclusive clips and behind the scenes stuff, but they will not put any of that online. It's exclusively for the audience, and it's a very Hollywood thing. And if there's one thing I've learned about Hollywood is that it's very old-fashioned in a lot of ways, very print-oriented, very photo shoot oriented, very suspicious of new technology, and very reluctant to embrace live streams in the same way that, say, games have. The streaming culture is just not the same, as it were. It always blows my mind how Hollywood seems to really favor print over everything, as if, you know, it's like 2010 or something like that. But
there's also, you know, what reminds me of that is a lot of like cool stuff you hear about like South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Is also there's a documentary I've been trying to watch for I think since 2022 that Casey Neistat was making about David Dobrik, and it came out of South by Southwest with all this buzz. There's no you can't watch it anywhere. If you were not at South by Southwest, you have
has to pick up a distributor.
Yeah. That stuff drives me.
But it was kind of a death march getting through that thing. I wrote many news stories out of it. It's all kind of a blur at this moment in time about what was actually shown.
I saw Zootopia.
Zootopia 2. Yeah. They had a bunch of new Star Wars stuff. They showed the first look at Mandalorian and Grogu, which,
Sure.
I admit it, out of all the Star Wars stuff, it's probably, I'm kind of excited about that. Andor Season 2, actual good Star Wars.
I need to watch the
Going
rest
on.
of Andor.
I watched
Oh,
the
I thought you were
first
saying
couple of episodes.
and/or.
Andor.
And or season
Andor.
2.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
I watched the first 3 episodes of Acolyte, and it was really bad. It was very, very boring show.
Yeah.
Not great. But, and then the Marvel stuff was kind of very whatever, I suppose. But by hour 3, or it's like 2.5 hours in, when they got to the Disney stuff and they're showing live action Snow White and live action Lilo Stitch and live action Mufasa, the prequel, I was just like, please let me go. I want it to be done.
Live action Lilo and Stitch bothers me on so many levels because number one, it's not live action. That's a
I saw you
CGI Stitch.
tweet about it.
Like number one, that's a CGI Stitch. If anybody is going to actually genetically engineer a Stitch to be real life and acting in a movie,
Muppet.
then I'll show up. Yeah, but like,
Would you call the Detective Pikachu movies live action?
it frustratingly, probably
it's
people would say
CG.
it's live action, but I think it's at least like half CG.
As live
Like-
action
like-
actors.
yeah,
Half
it's
action.
and here's the
Does
thing
that
is
make
like,
Wall-E live action as live action actors?
or like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like infamous
Yeah,
for
well,
being a mixed media.
It's a mixed media. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
and like that's the thing. I don't know if they ever called that Lion King remake a live action, but it was all like CG lions and stuff. Like there were probably some real lions somewhere in there, but like it's a bunch of CG of like, here's Simba talking. I know a lion can't talk. I've seen a lion. Like,
If you train them really
There's-
good, they can.
Those animals are so uncanny valley, like they were AI generated or something. But Sardin, backing up my assessment of Acolyte, I hear that it gets good once they finally start to bring in the main villain. But one of my biggest problems with Disney Star Wars specifically is the George Lucas version, even the prequels, the world felt more lived in, and there's something theme parky and unrealistic and very fake about the Disney versions, and it's most noticeable in Acolyte. I don't know if it's the lighting or the weathering on the individual costumes, which always look a little too perfect. Everything kind of looks almost toy-like. There's a real difference visually between Disney Star Wars and OG Star Wars.
I'm actually interested in. I've like largely written off Marvel at this point. It hasn't really interested me in a long time, but I do want to watch the Fantastic Four movie, just because apparently that is like a period piece, and I'm hoping that means that they're going to have to actually do something different with lighting and costuming and set design. Because I agree with you, like so many of these shows, like all go for the same lighting, the same look, the same set design, like the stuff that has interest in me, like WandaVision at least tries to do something different.
WandaVision ruled.
It was very good. I also low-key think that the Hawkeye show was pretty good. It was surprisingly good.
Right.
Felt like a return to the ideas of like Netflix Daredevil and stuff like that, where it was like, here's this series with a smaller scale focused on like a few set characters. And that's the other thing I don't like about some stuff. I liked Loki, but I felt like a lot of Loki was being like, we're setting up something big for the Marvel universe, and I cared more about like
Loki
the actual
season 1 was
character
great.
drama. Yeah. Like I get really tired of all this stuff when it's like, we're setting something up for the larger universe, so go watch the movie so you can see how this pans out. And I'm like, I
Loki
wanted to
season
watch
1
a
was
good
funny
show.
because it introduced Jonathan Majors, and it's like, here he is, the new big guy, bad King the Conqueror. Just kidding, it's Robert Downey Jr. and he's going to be Doctor Doom. We don't remember who's Jonathan Majors.
Nothing happened here. No one was here.
Nothing happened here.
I was trying to figure out, Kat. You said that the Acolyte looked like very toy-like. Like, I was wondering if they're using the volume, like the fancy screen that they use for like Mandalorian. I read. I guess they did not use that, which is weird because I feel like sometimes when Hollywood uses the volume, there's a little too much separation with like the subject in the background.
Yes.
that does make it feel toy-like in a bit, but apparently they did everything practical, so maybe it is the lighting or something. Or
It's
maybe
also
like fabric. Yeah, I don't know.
I've seen this. I don't know if it's like confirmed or anything, but like someone was looking at the Agatha trailer and then other like Disney stuff recently, and a lot of it is very center framed. And like the conspiracy theory is that like if you center frame all your shots, it makes it really easy for that image to translate well to TikTok, to mobile formats, that like it's a more multi-use image so that trailers will still look good no matter what platform you're watching them on. But it means that like a lot of angles, shots, setups end up looking very samey because they all have to keep the action framed in one area and be like very legible for all platforms.
That's kind of like a common thing in video production. Typically like YouTube videos and that sort of thing are all center framed, whereas typically Hollywood and more cinematic things use, put them on the rule of thirds on the grid, and it kind of definitely changes the mood of the piece. That's a good call out, Eric. That might definitely play into it to make it feel, it feels a little less cinematic.
I
feels
think
a little
also
more home video.
Exactly. Yes.
I think also I've been to the Star Wars theme park stuff, and I'm wondering if there's almost an edict to try and capture the mood of the theme park so that when people go to the Disney parks, they feel like they're actually stepping into Star Wars. But I think it adds an uncanny valley sheen to everything, because not the biggest theme park fan, actually. I don't mean to be a killjoy. I just find them really fake. I can't suspend my my disbelief long enough when I'm going into a Disney park. No matter, I can admire the craftsmanship and the history and everything that goes behind it. I really enjoyed the Jenny Nicholson video, actually. We've talked about this already, but it's really hard and really expensive to get it to the level where I would literally suspend my disbelief. I think the closest I've come is actually, I was really impressed by the Mario Park, actually. And as cool as the Star Wars park was actually really, really good, except for the fact that it was kind of a mall and there wasn't a lot to do within it, aside from go on the ride. But I digress. Eric, what have you been playing and or watching?
Watching, not much. I've been like bouncing around. I got caught up on Kaiju #8 finally, and that's a really good show. I've been reading the manga, so I'm way ahead of it, but I wanted to watch the English dub is very good for Kaiju #8, so I recommend that. If you want a show that's just about like kaijus invade Japan and there's like a special defense force that fights against them, and like the real draws, the main character is like a 30-something guy who thinks that like his dreams of being part of the special defense force are over, so he works on kaiju cleanup and is like literally getting like the guts and stuff out of there, and he gets bit by a kaiju and becomes a kaiju, and that is kind of like what leads into the whole drama.
He's a kaiju?
Yeah, he becomes a kaiju.
Number 8? Is he
becomes
the
kaiju
one?
number 8. Yeah, they number the kaijus that are so devastating to the world that they have to have a number. So he becomes kaiju number 8, and it's very good. It's very fun, like hiding your secret identity type show. It's very funny for a shonen battle anime that's usually you expect like some level of levity and jokes. One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball all have their kind of like jokey elements, but I think Kaiju number 8 is actually surprisingly funny and like consistently funny. But also the battle scenes are gorgeous. I think the whole concept of like fighting kaiju, and there's like a battle scene early on where, because he's hiding the fact that he's a kaiju, he's actually pretty weak as a human, and so he's like not really able to fight in the first battle that they do because he can barely kill any of like the smaller kaiju that are like roaming around. So he starts tearing apart the kaiju and being like, oh, their core is actually located down here, and there's also like reproductive organs, so if we don't take them out, they will like spawn into more. And he starts like sharing that. I kind of like that. I like that there's like a little bit of like, they get into the guts of what a kaiju is, literally. And I think that's good. So I think if you're looking for something to watch, that's really good. This whole season, last few seasons of anime have been spectacular. I think I talked about Elusive Samurai on here before, but that's very, very good and continues to be very good. Free Ren obviously is fantastic. So there's a lot of good anime. But as for games, I got into that alpha lab for 2XKO, the Riot Games fighting game, and we might have a heater on our hands here, folks. Not to call it early, but
we gotta get some sets in.
What a terrible name. 2XKO.
Yeah,
I'm not a defender of the name, but I think you all, you woke media people coming after games. Nah, I think it's a little blown out of proportion. But then the last week I have been calling it 2K XO,
Yes.
and I'm like, that's not it. So maybe you have a point.
I have a theory that they wanted to call it 2KO, but that sounds so much like 2K, which is NBA 2K, that they couldn't call it 2KO, and the SEO would have tanked them. So I do think this was an SEO play.
What was the previous name? Was
Project
it the
L.
Riot?
L.
What was it called?
Project L.
Come up with a better name.
I think Project L was a better name.
That was a better name.
It sounds kind of maybe underground fighting scene type thing. I think that's got kind of a vibe to it.
Maybe they were like, probably don't want to use the letter L in relation to a fighting game, but
hold that L. I have not held many L's, actually. I've been holding my own in that game. So the idea, for those who don't know, it's a League of Legends fighting game. This is not like Valorant, where they're creating new IP. This is totally based on League of Legends, the world of Runeterra.
Here's an idea. Call it League of Legends, the fighting game.
Yeah, that'll play great.
Hello.
Too bad Lethal League is already taken, because that would have been a really good name.
League of Legends Arena.
So I think the issue there would then be people would think you have to download League of Legends to play it or something like that. This is a completely new
You're
video
overthinking
game.
it. Use the IP that
you think
people
I'm overthinking it, and then what happened with the Wii U? People thought it was an expansion.
Well, that was just
Wii.
confusing anyway, because what's a U? You want to talk about having bad letters? You don't want an L in relation to a fighting game. U? Just call it the Wii HD. For the love of God.
The video game 2XKO. It is a League of Legends fighting game where you play as different characters from Runeterra. If you've played Arcane, you'll recognize one of them. Echo is in the game. There's also Braum, Alawi, Ari, Darius, and Yasuo. I think a pretty decent mix. There's no zoner in the alpha, which I think is weird. That's a little bit odd. I think the one character they would have had that would have been a zoner is Jinx, who you also know from Arcane. They were publicly saying at EVO that they've had to rework Jinx a few times. There were kind of different toolkits and ideas they had with her that they were trying to figure out what works. So I think that's still an in development character for them. This is very obviously alpha. I will say that up front, there are technical things that are just kind of not there. There's a few menus that the menus in general I would say are kind of a low point for the game that they really need to work on. The general UI flow is not the best. I think the lobby system is fantastic, but the UI flow is not great. And there's a lot of stuff where if you kind of poke around at the fringes of that game, you will be like, oh yeah, this is an alpha, all right. But you play 2v2. It's a tag fighter. You pick your team. There's kind of two things that I would say are the big draws. Number one, there's a groove system like Capcom versus SNK2 where you pick what your style of fighting is, and that kind of gives you what your edge is. So there's 2 times assists. So when you call in your tag partner for an assist, you can call them in for an additional assist right afterwards and do 2 in a row. You can do freestyle, which is their tag system lets you handshake tag. So when you call somebody in for an assist attack, you can then hit the button again to kind of handshake and trade off who you're controlling, and then the other character that you were previously controlling hops out. You can do that twice if you have handshake or freestyle tag. There's Fury, which is pretty straightforward. When you're below 40% health or below, you get more damage. That one's actually pretty popular. And then there's Pulse, which turns on your auto combo. So there are auto combos in this game, but you have to give up the benefit of having a better groove, which I think is a decent trade-off. It's a 6-button fighter. It is light, medium, heavy, tag button, and then 2 special buttons. And this is the other weird thing it does. There's no directional inputs. There's no fireball. There's no Shoryuken. Nothing.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's like Smash, where you have 2 special buttons, special 1, special 2, and then it's either neutral or forward or backward, and that controls like what special ability you throw out. So it's like simplified down in that way.
So I'll be able to play this game.
Yes, yeah. You don't have to do any quarter circles, half circles, 720s. You don't have to do
the game for me, man.
No DPs. Like it's all pretty like straightforward in what you do. The hardest input you have to do is like down for super. So down special 1 or down special 2 or down special 1 and 2 are kind of your level 1, 2, 3 supers. It's also a 2-player or even 4-player fighting game, because when you play together, you can be one character and then someone else can play the other character on your team, and then you can play a team of either a solo player or 2 players on that team, and you literally like handshake tag out. So you can tag somebody in for an assist, and then when they clap in, now they are playing and they're fighting, and you can tag out to your friends. So like if I was playing and I'm Yasuo and Kat, you're like Ari, when I tag you in, you take over and now you're running, and then I'm in the back and I kind of have some of the controls when it comes to like burst and when I want to assist and stuff like that. But it's like a genuine 2-on-2 fighting game that takes that system pretty seriously. They've made some design decisions to treat it pretty seriously. Like you have individual special meters, not a shared special meter. So if I have 3 bars of special, you might only have 1, and we can't like share them across, which I think is actually an interesting design decision. But like there's a lot going on here, and if I'm throwing a lot at you, it's because this game is like surprisingly easy to pick up. But then I was describing it as like the first floor, just getting into 2x KO, pretty straightforward. The controls are easy to understand, the characters are easy to play. And then the second floor of like, I want to be good at 2x KO, that's a high climb. You're doing a lot there. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of mechanics to get your head around, a lot of like little intricacies. But I think that's a good thing, because ultimately what it turns into is like, there's some nasty, vile shit you can do to other players in this game. There's just some degenerate combos that you can throw out. There is some disgusting things you can do to other people in this game, like just completely take away their controls. They don't get to play anymore. And I think that's a good thing, because I think in tag fighters specifically, the spectacle and the skill on display really goes a long way towards making these games have a long lifespan. And you see that in Marvel 2, Marvel 3. You see that in Dragon Ball FighterZ, which I think was also a very approachable idea of what those games could be, but did have a pretty high skill floor for getting good at that game. And I'm excited to see that Riot, like, I was curious how much they were going to water down a fighting game. And, like, Valorant was a case where it was like, okay, are they going to make, like, the baby's first Counter-Strike? And when it came out, it was like, oh, no, they came up with something that is honestly so prevalent that it has in some ways supplanted Counter-Strike. It didn't help that Counter-Strike 2 was very mixed reception, but
they added smoke grenades.
Yeah. Like the ideas in Valorant made so much sense for what they were doing, and have like kind of become the main vehicle for, there's still Counter-Strike players. It's not like Counter-Strike disappeared, but Valorant like forged out a space for itself. I could see 2XKO doing the same, where it's like, this is a fighting game that a lot of people are going to be interested in. There's a high skill floor. It's really impressive to watch people who are good at this game play. It's going to be a hype Evo game, I imagine. And
can I ask you, if I were to kind of go through a list, if I were to tier rank really quick the characters in the alpha build based on their viability in League, I'm curious how, if they would match up. You know what I mean?
Like how good are they in League of Legends right now versus how good are they in 2XKO?
Yeah.
I'm going to say that all the characters in 2XKO feel pretty viable right now, like in their own ways. I do think there are like 1 or 2 characters that have emerged as like people are playing these characters.
Is Yasuo
Yasuo's nasty. Yasuo's
that if you play League and you play Yasuo, it's usually a bad time, like if you're going up against one.
Yeah, Yasuo is basically Virgil. That's how I would describe it from MVC 3. He's got some very Virgil moves, but they did some cool things with, like, he has his wind wall. So he can put up wind wall to block projectiles, and that's really effective. Ari is the one that I like a lot. She's very fast, a bit of a rushdown
She's
character.
She's a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah. She's essentially the mascot for League of Legends at this point. And she's very good. I think Echo is really fun to watch because he has those moves where he can kind of time warp a little bit. So he has that shadow that follows him, or the clone, and he can kind of do some mix-ups where he like bounces back and forth between them. And when you add in like tag attacks to that, it's fun. I like Darius because he just big axe and swing.
That's who I'm planning to play.
He hits big button, and
I play
love
top
big
lane
button.
in League, and I fight against Darius a lot. And his bleed stuff always annoys me. And now, you know, it might be a good time to get in on Darius.
Alawi's got the tentacles, which is really cool. She does some really cool setups for like
Also
corner
a top
pressure.
laner I always hate fighting against.
Braum is like kind of, he's not a grappler, but he is a bit of a like big body bruiser type guy where he wants to kind of beat you up a little bit and has some cool combinations and mechanics. Is there anybody I forgot? There's Yasuo, Ari, Echo, Alawi, Darius, Braum. Yeah, it's only 6.
That's everyone. Yeah.
It's only 6 in the alpha right now. Obviously, they've said that Jinx is on the way, and then Katarina is like kind of lingering in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
I was remarking to a friend that I love this game because I can finally play a game with League of Legends characters in it that isn't League of Legends, because like I don't want to go back to the old me. All right. Like, I had my time with League of Legends. It did things to me that I wasn't happy about, and I have left it in the past. I don't need to go back to the old me, but I do love those characters. Like, I do think Riot Games is really good at making like just memorable characters, and I think a fighting game makes perfect sense for like getting those characters in front of more people. So I'm really like curious to see how it evolves, what it turns into. I do think like Dragon Ball FighterZ is a good comparison, because that was a game where you took a really popular IP, turned it into a fighting game that actually like was not the arena fighters or the Budokais, as much as I love Budokai. And Sparking Zero is pretty good so far. I played some of it at SGF and I really enjoyed it. But this was like an actual fighting game with Dragon Ball characters in it. And people from all over the FGC got into it. People who played Tekken, who played Mortal Kombat, who played Smash, who played Street Fighter, like all were playing Dragon Ball. And you got to see all these different styles and approaches like converge on one game. I think 2XKO could be like the second coming of that, where like everybody is really interested in the hot new game, and you don't need to have established skill or talent or like series familiarity. Everybody's going to be showing up and have some level of like, I'm new to this, how does this work? And that always leads to really exciting stuff. Like the Sonic Fox Goichi saga of Dragon Ball FighterZ was incredible. It was an anime unto itself. So I hope that happens for 2XKO. I really do, because fighting games have honestly never been in a better spot. I think we're in a really good place for fighting games right now, between Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, Strive, your French-bred games and stuff like that. And the only one that's struggling is Mortal Kombat down at the bottom of the pool, but they're trying to stay afloat. And I really do think that like 2XKO could really just add more to the scene, and that's what I like. I like that it's adding more. It's not replacing anything.
Well, I guess we'll find out when 2XKO comes out at some point. All right, that's it for the tavern. Alex, you're a special guest, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but normally this is the part where we have a little bit of a nostalgia nook / pit, but Nadia's not here, so just wanted to offer you the opportunity to either say a few words about Game Informer or share some memories that brought you some joy.
Yeah, thank you. Working at Game Informer, I mean, it's the best job I've ever had. Matt Miller, who was the final editor-in-chief of Game Informer, is the best person I've ever worked for. Really kind-hearted leadership at Game Informer that put family and friends above everything else, you know. It was a really great place to work. I'm going to miss it a lot. I got to travel the world because of Game Informer. You know, previously I I went to St. Lucia on my honeymoon, and that was the only time really I've left the U.S. as an adult. And then I joined Game Informer, and I've been all over the world now. And so that's a gift that I definitely I knew it was going to. I knew someday I wouldn't have that, and so I took full advantage of it while I did, and really tried to appreciate it. And yeah, I just say that everybody there are excellent people, and they also happen to do really good work, which I think is the best way for a company or a team to be set up. I think I'd rather work with somebody who's a really great person who maybe doesn't know as much. Than have and I'm not saying that that's people at Game Inform, but that's where I place my priority is in people over skills, right? And it just so happened that we kind of had both at Game Informer, and it was an institution. The magazine started the year I was born.
Oh my God.
Context,
That's crazy.
It's actually older than me. I think the first issue
33
was
years old.
Yeah, March or April 1991, and I was in November. So like the magazine was older than me, and I've been reading it since I was a kid. I remember I read it. I read the magazine before this, but the issue that I still have a vivid memory of is opening up the Halo 2 issue. The cover story, seeing the multiplayer debut of Halo 2, seeing that ghosts were playable. I think they showed off the Waterworks map. I remember just scouring the screenshots with my friends looking for more details. And now that I'm an adult, I can appreciate what Game Informer has morphed into, or what it had morphed into, which is like a place for really interesting preservation efforts, really interesting features and interviews with developers. And we still had that stuff that I first loved Game Informer for as a kid. Those previews, those exclusive details on upcoming games. But it was by the end of its run, it was really well rounded. I think it upheld
Great
the
crew.
quality. Yeah, great crew. I think it upheld the quality that was deserving. It was deserving of its prestige, I think. And I'm really sad that I no longer work there. I announced Viewport yesterday, and that's been going really well, like on Patreon and stuff. But I kind of, after I launched everything, kind of had sadness hit, because it was kind of, my friends who have gone through similar things, I've been laid off before, but never from a job that I loved. And also, I was talking to my therapist about this. The fact that I lost my job publicly as well is also a weird thing to experience.
It's a moment for sure.
Yeah, and so I'm still grieving the loss of that job and my coworkers. Not that we won't stay friends, but it's just a huge change. But I am happy to have been a gamer for 4 years, and that I've gotten to contribute a bit to its history and its legacy. And
I really enjoyed your Japan coverage in particular. It was really cool.
Thank you. That was I loved going on those trips. It was
really captured a great side of the Japanese games industry.
Yeah, I'd like to think so too. Thank you.
Took us in deep.
Yeah. So, yeah. Long live Game Informer. That's what I've been saying all the time this week. I'll remember my time there always. I think a lot of people, whether you work there or you were a fan or you had a friend that worked there, I think it'll hold a place in my heart for as long as I live. I will never forget my time working there, and just the great experience I had working at that publication. So, yeah.
I was always surprised that I never ended up working at Game Informer, because obviously I'm from Minneapolis, and I had a game publication right there in my hometown. When I was living in Japan, Andy McNamara was one of the first people I reached out to, and basically said, do you have freelance opportunities, and showed him my portfolio. And Andy, bless him, was very kind and actually said that he really liked my portfolio and that I should hit him up if I ever come back to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And subsequently, I moved to San Francisco. But when I remember, I was in an event. It was like a sports game event, and we were doing roundtable interviews. And Kato was there, Matt Kato.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. OG Game Informer people.
Yeah.
And he was like, Kat, you ask such great questions. Do you want a job? The problem was I had to move back to Minneapolis in order to take a job with Game Informer. And my partner was going to school here, and there was a lot of like things happening. And I had pitched myself a couple times to go work at Game Informer at various points, and it never quite worked out. But I did see the office. I saw the vault.
I know you had a lot of really
folks
close
there.
friends that worked there. I know you and Kim are close. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim was... I love Kim. She's so great. It's been a minute since I talked to her, but she's been on the show a couple times. I think she was on our Final Fantasy ranking from a few years back. She really knew her RPGs, big expert on that front. So
Yeah.
a lot of, even though I never worked there, just by virtue of the big Minnesota connection, I've always felt a special closeness to Game Informer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to miss it. A lot of people will. And I think that speaks to just how important of a place it was, you know. Everybody's got a story in the games industry, I feel like, with Game Informer. At least, you know, a lot of people I've run into, you know, there's some kind of connection or they were just a fan of it, and yeah, it was a great honor to work there. So, I'm going to miss it.
Rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for this episode of Axe of the Blood God. Thank you so much for listening. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us one more time where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me over at Viewport now. It's my new video game documentary series that I'm getting off the ground right now. As Kat mentioned, the first doc is going to be on Another Crab's Treasure. I'm actually flying there this week to visit Aggro Crab and talk to them. There's also, now that I've announced this, there's been a couple other interesting opportunities while I'm there that I might get a chance to look into. But all of that is going to be housed over on my Patreon for Viewport, patreon.com/viewportvideo. And the YouTube channel is youtube.com/@Viewport Video, because YouTube messed up URLs. I can't stand that they switched up how those work now. But and then if you want to follow my personal page, I'm just at It's Van Aken on Instagram and Twitter. And very much thankful to be on Axe of the Blood God. I really, really appreciate it.
And we're grateful to have you. And of course, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod. Lots of bonus content right there. We stream this show every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific, though we'll be starting an hour early next Saturday. For the charity stream, it'll be 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll be kicking it all off August 17th with our live recording with Matt McMuscles, twitch.tv/bloodgodpod. Stay tuned for lots more info on our various social channels. We're heading now into the Axe of the Blood God post show with our Stars of Destiny, and this week we're joined by Anthrax Bees, Drew RWX, Harvest Lunatic, JB, Laguna Matata 124, Robo Riley, our intrepid mod, and Sardin. Thank you so much for your generous support. I have been your host, Kat Bailey. We'll be back next week. And for Eric, Alex, and myself, thanks for listening, and happy adventuring.
Route. You waited that time.